Tubes catch bass, period. Doesn't matter what type of bass you're going for, largemouth, smallmouth, or spotted bass. A soft plastic tube just covers the profile of so many different prey species, whether you're fishing on the bottom or up in the water column. Well, there are times when using a traditional insert tube head with the exposed hook, which I love to do, but there are times when it's just not going to work out. You've got some nasty wood that's there, the vegetation's starting to get a little bit thicker. You know, you need to have that protected hook point. And you could, of course, use a Texas rig tube, but a Texas rig tube just falls completely different, all right? And that is where a stupid tube really shines, because it still has this very enticing fall to it, albeit different than that spiral drop of an insert tube head. But we'll go over the benefits of the stupid tube in just a second, but let's go ahead and rig it up first. Number one is you got to make sure that you've got a little bit different hook. Okay, so our traditional insert tube head, this is what it looks like, right? Well, you're going to want to get one that's got that EWG or extra wide gap bend to it. This is going to be really important to keep it as snag free as possible. And also these stupid tube heads a lot of times will have a 60-degree line tie as opposed to that more traditional 90-degree line tie. So as far as the rigging process goes, go ahead and take your tube, and then you're going to put that hook point in through the cavity side first. So you're going to go ahead and put it in there, and then get it down to about 1/4 inch from the tube head, okay? And then I like to take a look at it, get these strands out of the way, and make sure that it looks like things are going to be centered up pretty good coming down the length of the tube. This one does. And then you're going to go ahead and start to work that head up into the tube, okay? And then when it gets to the end here, we're going to go ahead and turn it around. And depending on the size of the jig head you're using, this is a little more difficult. This is just an 1/8 ounce. The 1/4 ounce gets to be a little bit more challenging. You got to work it through the plastic. And then you're going to bring it back down around. And then as you're bringing it around, you'll feel that jig head kind of slip into position. Boom, that's when you can pop that line tie through. And then go ahead and take your hook and really make sure you got it lined up straight. And then boom, that hook, because of that EWG, is going to lay right there on the back of the tube like that. You can even texpose that hook point down into the plastic a little bit if you like. But that is how you rig the stupid tube. Takes a little bit of practice. Well, let's go over some of the benefits. Number one, very weedless, very snag proof, and you can basically flip and pitch this like you would a Texas rig or a jig. So it just opens up a whole new avenue for where you would normally fish this tube. But here's the key. Earlier I talked about you still have that enticing fall, right? Well, a stupid tube, as opposed to that spiraling drop, a stupid tube is going to have a glide to it. And depending on the tube, the length of the tube, the weight of the jig head, sometimes that glide is going to be a pretty short glide path. Other times it's really going to glide, you know, several feet, depending how deep you're fishing. And if you've got that rig straight, that plastic is straight, it's going to glide perfectly straight. That's a very different fall than you're going to get with a Texas rig that just drops straight down. And if you're fishing heavily pressured bodies of water, this stupid tube gliding action, this glide path that it takes, is something that the bass probably haven't seen a bunch of. It's probably safe to say you may be one of the few anglers on any given day that are fishing a tube like this. So that's another key benefit if you're fishing where there's lots and lots of anglers. A stupid tube is also going to allow you to use a little bit heavier equipment. I don't know about you, but when I'm using a traditional insert tube head, most of the time I've got spinning gear, a little bit lighter line. When the bass go ahead and eat these insert tube heads, you know, you're going to feel that weight and you basically reel down, load up, you've got the fish. Well, with the stupid tube, you can go, I like to use braided line, fluorocarbon leader, depending on the clarity, maybe straight braid. But you can think of it more in terms of a traditional jig hook set, a Texas rig type of a hook set, where you can go ahead and lay into it a little bit more. And if you're fishing that heavy cover, that, you know, the brush, that thick brush, thick vegetation, you want that harder hook set to get that bass turned and coming out and not bury up. So if you like using heavier equipment, Stupid Tube is a good one for you. And here's the last real key benefit that I like. So once you've worked that heavy stuff, or maybe you're working a shoreline that's a little bit rockier, or a do-nothing bank, and you're just making some long casts, the Stupid Tube has just a really nice lift and glide action. So go ahead and just raise that rod tip up, bring that lure up, and then let it glide back towards you. And when you've got that momentum coming back towards you, it's going to glide a really long ways. So lift it up, glide it all the way back to the bottom. Lift it up, glide, and just keep repeating. And if you'd like to watch a video that talks about fishing crankbaits a little bit differently and how we present them that maybe others are not doing on your lakes and rivers, go ahead and check this video out right here. And make sure that you go out and encourage someone today. You never know how you might just change their life. For the Bass Fishing Life, I'm your host, Steve Rogers.